It started like any other night. I had just clocked in at 11 p.m. at the corner convenience store, the one tucked between a laundromat and a small pharmacy. It wasn't much, just shelves of chips and candy, a fridge humming in the corner, and a bell that jingled every time someone walked through the door. Most nights it was quiet. I liked it that way, the silence, the stillness, the feeling that the world had gone to sleep while I kept watch over this tiny, fluorescent-lit kingdom. But that night, something felt off. I remember the first time I noticed him. He wasn't doing anything unusual, at least not at first glance. Just standing near the magazine rack, leaning slightly against the wall, eyes scanning the store as if he owned it. But there was something about the way he looked at me. Not the casual glance of a customer, not the polite acknowledgement of a stranger, but a stare that made my skin crawl. I tried to ignore it. I kept stacking the shelves and ringing up the few customers who trickled in. Hours passed and he left without buying anything. No big deal, right? I shrugged it off. Night shifts were long, people came and went. But then it happened again. 2 nights later he returned. Same posture, same distant stare, same silence. I noticed him immediately, even before he stepped inside. The faint click of the door, the soft thud of his shoes against the linoleum floor, and there he was, leaning in exactly the same spot, arms crossed, eyes fixed on me. My stomach tightened. I tried to tell myself I was imagining it. Maybe it was a coincidence. Maybe he just liked that corner of the store. But the pattern grew. Every night he appeared at different hours, sometimes at 1 a.m., sometimes at 2:30, always quiet, always watching. I started keeping the door locked behind me after my breaks, but that didn't matter. He never tried to force it open. He just waited. The first night it really hit me was when I was alone. The only sound in the store was the hum of the refrigerators and the occasional beep of the register. I heard it before I saw it, the soft shuffle of shoes. I froze, pretending to be busy with restocking the soda shelves. And then I felt it, his eyes on me, not from across the store, right on me, like he could see every movement, every breath. I turned slightly, hoping to catch him doing something, anything that would make this feel normal. He was standing at the end of the aisle, just watching. No words, no expression, nothing but eyes that burned straight through me. I swallowed hard, my heart racing. "Can I help you?" I asked, voice wavering. No answer, just a nod. A subtle, deliberate nod. And then he walked out. I told myself I would forget it, that night shift paranoia was common. I had worked alone before. I had handled strange customers. But deep down, I knew this wasn't normal. It escalated. A week later, I found a note slipped under the door. It was simple, written in neat, sharp handwriting. "I like watching you. Don't worry, I won't touch you. Not yet." I froze. My hands trembled as I picked it up. My mind raced. Who could it be? The idea that someone had been outside the store watching me, waiting for the right moment, made my skin crawl. I called the manager, but he just shrugged. He said, "It's probably some kid trying to scare you." It wasn't a kid. The nights grew longer. My breaks were short, my eyes constantly darting to the door. Every time the door jingled, I'd catch a shadow standing still outside watching me. He never came in during busy hours, never spoke, just waited. Then came the night he got too close. I was at the register, closing out the few sales of the hour. The door jingled, and I looked up instinctively. There he was, standing just inside the doorway. For the first time, he didn't move, didn't lean, didn't blink, just stood. "Can I help you?" I asked again, trying to steady my voice. Still nothing. He just stared. And I realized with a sinking feeling that he had memorized my routine. He knew exactly when I would be there alone. He had been planning this. I started carrying a flashlight and a small can of pepper spray. My breaks became a prison. I'd pace near the staff room, eyes glued to the doorway, but he was always patient, always silent, like he knew I was terrified and enjoyed it. The final straw came when I walked outside for a quick break, just to smoke a cigarette. The street was empty. I flicked my lighter, took a deep drag, and froze. There he was, leaning against the wall across the street, watching me. His eyes locked on me. My heart jumped into my throat. I wanted to run, but I was frozen. And then, just as silently as he appeared, he was gone. I never reported him again. The police told me there was nothing they could do without proof. The manager didn't want to hear it. And so I endured. Night after night, the same figure, the same silent watching. I couldn't tell anyone else. They would laugh, call me paranoid, tell me it's just a regular customer. But I knew. I always knew. Even now, months later, I walk past that store during the day and my stomach drops. I can still see him leaning against the wall, waiting, watching, patient, silent. And the worst part? I know he's still out there, somewhere, waiting for the next night shift, waiting for the next time I'm alone.
I had been working as a delivery driver for almost a year, mostly late-night shifts. It wasn't glamorous, but the money was decent, and I liked the quiet hours when the roads were mostly empty. Usually, it was just me, the hum of the engine, and the faint glow of streetlights bouncing off the asphalt. It started subtly. I noticed the same car on a couple of my routes, a dark sedan with tinted windows. At first, I thought I was imagining it. Maybe it was just coincidence. But then it happened again and again. Every night, the car would appear a few blocks behind me, sometimes slowing down when I slowed, always staying just far enough back that I could see headlights, but not the driver. I began to feel watched. I tried not to let it bother me. I told myself it was just another night driver heading the same way, nothing more. But the feeling of eyes on the back of my neck was impossible to ignore. My heart started racing whenever I glanced in the rearview mirror. And then the car started following me closer. It was late, past midnight. I had just left a delivery on a quiet suburban street, the kind with darkened windows and empty sidewalks. I got back into my van, trying to shake the uneasy feeling, but when I looked up, there it was, the same dark sedan, headlights pointed directly at me. I tried to act casual, taking a different route home, weaving through side streets. But it followed. Every turn I made, every stoplight, it was there. Patient, silent, unyielding. I pulled over at a 24-hour convenience store to collect myself, pretending to check my phone. The car stopped a few yards behind me. I watched as the tinted windows didn't move, didn't flicker, just staring, waiting. I knew then it wasn't coincidence anymore. I started varying my routes, even leaving earlier or later than usual. Nothing worked. No matter how many side streets I took, the car appeared behind me within minutes. My mind raced with possibilities. Was it a random stalker? Someone who knew my schedule? Or something worse, someone who had been following me for weeks? One night, it escalated. I had just finished a long shift, delivering to a block of apartments I wasn't familiar with. My van rattled over the uneven asphalt as I drove back to the main road. The sedan appeared again, closer than ever. My stomach twisted. I could see the outline of the driver, a man, tall, silent, unwavering. I kept driving, trying not to panic, heart hammering. When I took a turn to a street I knew was empty, I realized he had done the same turn without even trying to hide it. My hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly, my knuckles turned white. I decided to confront it. I pulled into a well-lit parking lot, my breath fogging the window. I stepped out, keeping my keys in hand, pretending I was calm. The man stayed in the car. Nothing moved, but then slowly, he rolled down the window. He didn't speak, he just looked at me. With a faint, unnerving smile, eyes locked on mine. It felt like he knew me, knew my routines, my fears, my life. I ran, back to the van, doors locked, engine roaring to life. He didn't chase me in the parking lot, but as soon as I merged onto the main road, there he was again, at the exact distance, like a shadow attached to my movements. By the time I got home, I parked in my garage, heart racing, body shaking. I called a friend, telling them what happened. They said, maybe you're just imagining it. Maybe it's nothing. But I wasn't imagining it. The next day, I called the company, trying to report a suspicious vehicle following me. They dismissed it, saying it was probably a concerned citizen or a coincidence. But deep down, I knew better. Weeks passed. I started changing my shifts, taking random detours, even driving home different routes every night. But the car kept appearing, sometimes during the day, sometimes on quiet roads where there shouldn't have been anyone watching. Eventually, I started leaving packages at neighbors' houses, taking breaks, and always checking the rearview mirror. The car never left. The man never tried to speak, never honked, never confronted me. He just followed, watching, waiting, patient. Even now, I catch myself glancing behind me when I'm out. Every late-night street, every dark parking lot, every empty road, I expect to see him there, silently observing, a reminder that some dangers aren't supernatural. Some dangers are all too human.
Working the night shift at the old office building wasn't glamorous, but it paid the bills. Most nights it was quiet. Too quiet. The hum of fluorescent lights, the soft buzz of the security cameras, and the occasional creak of the heating system were my only companions. I liked the solitude at first. It gave me time to think. Until the footsteps started. It was my third week on the job when I first noticed it. I was doing a routine patrol, walking down the empty hallways, checking doors, flipping switches, making notes on the clipboard. Then, faintly, I heard it. The sound of shoes against the floor behind me. I paused, listened. The sound stopped. I told myself it was probably one of the other night staff moving through another corridor, but there shouldn't have been anyone else working that night. I shook my head and continued. The next night, it happened again, and this time it was closer. Footsteps echoing behind me, quickening when I quickened, slowing when I slowed. I turned corners slowly, trying to catch a glimpse. Nothing. The unease grew over the next few nights. Doors I was sure I had locked were found slightly ajar. Office chairs were moved, papers shuffled on desks that I hadn't touched. It was subtle, almost like someone was testing me, probing the building. I started carrying a flashlight and a small pocket alarm just in case, but the sense of being watched didn't leave me. Every hallway, every shadow seemed alive. Every creak made my heart jump. Then, one night, I saw him. I was checking the third floor near the storage rooms. The corridor was dimly lit, only the emergency lights casting long, thin shadows. I glanced down the hall and froze. A man was standing there, middle-aged, average build, wearing dark clothes. He wasn't moving, just staring at me from the end of the hall. I flicked my flashlight toward him. Nothing, just a shadow. When I turned back to continue my patrol, he was gone. I double-checked the security cameras. That's when I saw him, moving through hallways silently, always one step ahead of me, appearing and disappearing between cameras. He wasn't a ghost, I told myself.
he was real, and he was in the building. Over the next few nights, it got worse. I started noticing small things. Doors that should have been locked, the faint smell of cologne in empty offices, the sound of breathing when no one was around. And then, the threats started. A note slid under my office door. "I see you. I know your routine." My stomach twisted. I called the police. They said there wasn't enough evidence. No forced entry, no fingerprints, nothing to prove someone was breaking in. And yet, I knew I had been watched, followed, tested. One night, I caught him in the act. I was making my rounds, flashlight in hand, when I saw him crouched behind a storage cabinet watching me as I passed. I shouted, but he didn't run, just stood, smiling faintly. He knew I had seen him, and then he disappeared, like a shadow melting into the walls. From that night on, I never felt safe in the building. I installed extra locks where I could, started keeping my phone in hand at all times, and avoided areas where he had been seen before. The tension never left. Every floor, every hallway, every corner seemed to hold the possibility of him waiting silently. Eventually, I requested a transfer. I couldn't work there anymore. But even now, months later, whenever I hear footsteps in an empty hallway, my heart jumps. I know what it's like to be watched, to be followed by someone patient, silent, and real. And the scariest part, he was never caught. I moved into my first apartment a little over a year ago. It was an older building, nothing fancy, but cheap and close to my work. I liked being independent, living alone for the first time. At first, everything seemed normal. Quiet neighbors, the hum of the old heating system, the occasional sound of footsteps in the hall. Then he showed up. The first time I noticed him, I didn't think much of it. A man in the apartment across the hall, maybe my age, maybe older. He would occasionally wave or nod in the hallway. Polite, harmless. I told myself I was overthinking it, but over time, things started to feel wrong. It began subtly. At night, when I came home late from work, I would catch glimpses of him standing by his door, sometimes staring in my direction. Not casually, he would stand perfectly still, watching. Sometimes when I peeked out my window, I'd see his silhouette lingering across the hall. I brushed it off as coincidence. Maybe he liked to stay up late, maybe he was lonely. But then the small things started happening. Items I hadn't left out of place were slightly moved. My door was always locked, but sometimes I would hear a soft click as if it had been jiggled. I found a note slipped under my door once. "You looked nice tonight." I had my hands shook as I picked it up. I didn't know whether to be terrified or just angry. I never left notes for anyone. I didn't know who would. He began showing up in the hallways at odd times, when I was getting mail, taking out trash, coming home from work. Always watching, never speaking, just standing there like a statue. I started avoiding him, walking quickly past, keeping my head down, hoping he would disappear. One night, I came home around 11 p.m. The building was silent except for the faint hum of the lights in the hallway. I reached my door and froze. He was standing just outside, leaning slightly against the wall. My stomach dropped. "Hey," I said nervously, trying to keep my voice calm. He smiled, not a friendly smile, a smile that didn't reach his eyes. He said nothing, just tilted his head and watched me unlock my door. My hands trembled as I slid the key in. After that night, things escalated. I started finding small things outside my door. A single glove, a small trinket, a receipt. Nothing directly threatening, but enough to let me know he had been inside the hallway after I had gone out. I began carrying a small pepper spray can and checking my apartment locks multiple times before bed. He started following me outside, too.
I noticed him walking the same route when I went to the corner store, standing across the street when I took out the trash. Sometimes I would see him sitting in a car down the block, lights off, waiting. The worst night was about 2 months later. I had just returned from work, exhausted, and was heading up the stairs when I heard it. Footsteps behind me, slow, heavy, matching mine step for step. I tried to ignore it, quickened my pace. The steps quickened too. I reached my door, fumbled with the keys, and felt his presence almost at my back. I slammed the door shut, locked it, and pressed myself against it, heart racing. I could hear him move away just down the hall, but I knew he hadn't left. He never left. I called the building manager, who reluctantly agreed to review the security footage. When it came back, my stomach sank. There he was, lurking in the hallways late at night, after hours, waiting, watching, sometimes peeking through apartment doors. I showed the footage to the police. They said there wasn't enough evidence to press charges. He hadn't touched anyone, hadn't broken in, hadn't threatened anyone directly. And so I had to live with it. Every night, I double-checked my locks. I installed extra lights outside my door. I never went out after dark without a phone in hand, ready to call for help. Yet, I could still feel him sometimes, across the hall, just watching, waiting, patient. Even now, over a year later, whenever I hear footsteps in an empty hallway, I freeze, and I know it could be him, just standing there, pretending to be nothing, pretending to be normal. And the thought that someone can watch, follow, and invade your life without ever touching you, that's the real terror.